Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gears
back
4.
To Gears of War 4.
Yeah, what? Sorry, JD. Nobody cares about you. Anyway,
exactly.
I'm supposed to be the star.
Anyway, everybody, today we have a special guest, Deji. Since we've been going a lot of off-topic, and Deji in particular is very critical of us going off-topic, I decided to give him the reins of this part so he can focus this on, get this back on more focused Gears composition. Deji.
I figure asking the wrong person to stay on topic, considering my commentaries don't do that.
So you're criticizing us for something that you yourself do.
I can attest to this at this point.
I guess it takes one to find another, I suppose.
Well, considering your leader likes to brag about having more subscribers, then yeah.
Oh, come on, Dez.
That is exactly what happened, Chova.
No. He mistook that, essentially. Anyway.
You might want to give some context for the audience who hasn't seen Deji's LP channel.
Yeah, actually, Deji, that's a good point. Shield your channel, please.
By all means, go. Yes. It's still more interesting than this game, so go ahead, chill.
Hello, my name is Deji. I'm part of Blue Zone Comms, so we do commentaries lists like this, like steps where our parts aren't as long.
Link in the description.
Very well
Anyway, so Dej, how about we start off this part
also subscribe to us.
Also, the Mighty Number 9 playthrough is currently running where Joe was in it.
This part, this particular video is sponsored by Blue Zone Comms.
Oh, come on, not Raid Shadow Legends? That's the best game ever.
We're going to great
guys, I'm gonna be real.
Anyway, so Dej, what's your prior knowledge of this franchise?
Yeah.
All I know is that a lot of people really loved Gears of War 2 back in the day. I can't believe I'm saying that.
Yeah. All right. That service tower will get us to the...
Without being rude, I feel like this franchise shaped the 7th gen in a negative way. Because everyone wanted to have the same aesthetic as Gears. Brown and gray.
Yeah.
So
Sure. That's the issue. It's one of those cases where it's one of those cases where I can tell you that you're from someone who has played the original trilogy quite a bit at this point, and we even commented on it. Like, it's one of those cases where the interesting thing is that the Gears of War original trilogy has a special thing where it's a cover-based shooter, but it also has horror elements to them. And that's why they went with the darker color palette, to purposely fit with that kind of atmosphere. However, a lot of those games that you said that ripped off that aesthetic didn't actually include the elements in Gears of War that make sense to have that aesthetic, and yeah, that's the problem right there.
It's definitely a problem with 7th gen as a whole, I've noticed. Like, 7th gen, I'd say, is the most infamous gen for franchises either trying to play Follow the Leader and going all darker, grimmer, literally more gray and more mature.
It started with 6th gen, but it became worse with 7th gen. Remember the first Jak and Daxter was this colorful, cartoony 3D platformer. Then the first game, and the next game,
they went full Shadow the Hedgehog on
dialogue. The very first line of dialogue Jak says is, I'm going to kill Baron Praxis.
Oh yeah, Jak 2 is amazingly dark.
And then you had Shadow the Hedgehog, you had Mario Strikers going that more.
Zero.
That's 7th gen, but yeah.
That's 7th gen. I guess there was Prince of Persia Warrior Within.
That too, yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Oh boy, Warrior Within.
I got one, Deji, actually, that was in that gen.
What?
Space Invaders Invasion Day.
Oh god.
They made a dark and gritty Space Invaders.
I think you were in the commentary, Pedro.
Yeah, you were there.
I was.
Well, to play devil's advocate, I think the game itself, despite the premise, is very forgettable, so I don't blame him for not remembering it.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, how many years ago?
How many movies and a lot of RPGs and visual novels, so it's kind of hard to.
Basically, Pedro, it's Space Invaders, but like played in the streets, and instead of having a spaceship, you have like a person with like an Uzi. vehicles,
So-
you know, left and right shooting these aliens that are going down through that classic pattern.
So,
Be like these gritty World Wars style, you know.
so let me get this
setting.
straight.
Why
Is-
they don't just charge the humans is beyond
Oh
me.
shit!
Oh!
So let me get this straight. It's a Space Invaders game that doesn't actually take place in space.
Nope.
Then why is it called
the
Space
last level
Invaders?
takes- Well, Pedro, the last level does take place in a space station.
I guess.
That totally justifies the title.
Anyway,
Random Wildstorm again. Again, not
It's
a lot
another
of-
wind
flare.
That's also another thing. It seems that this game has only one idea for a weather condition. I get it that in the previous titles we had like just the Razor Hail, but now that this is a sequel, you establish new type of conditions. I mean, I guess we could have spiced up instead of just relying on the one trick. Like, does Gears 5 introduce another one
No.
of these particular weather? Oh, that's a shame. Yeah.
Tio, it's simple. Their developers are just really big fans of Gen
well,
5.
actually, now that I think about it, actually no. Basically, when we get to the second hub world, the desert one, there's. They don't ever. I don't remember if they call it a wind flare, but maybe it is. Basically, they have an even bigger storm type thing, and there's even big lightning bolts, but even bigger than the ones in this game. Like, they basically took this gimmick and made it bigger and boomer and blah blah blah. That's
Sure. Okay, we'll see in due time.
Okay, I'll give Gears of War 5 some credit. It does the open world gameplay better than Last of Us 2 did.
Oh, okay, Jova, like, I guess
Is this gonna be your new punching bag?
Yes.
Also, what the hell was that with the corpse?
It's
That was
the physics engine fucked up.
Like, do I have to make a
The
new
power of the
logo?
Unreal Engine.
I failed. I don't know, Job. I will argue they're both. I don't know, Job. I will argue they're both on the same
Not just
caliber.
that, I'm with Deji on this one. It's a different category altogether in that kind of sense.
That too, yeah.
Um,
Well, Gears of
Like, I'm gonna
War.
have to make a new poster saying Joa versus The Last of Us 2.
No. Okay, look. Unlike Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, I don't necessarily.
Yeah, he mentions it here too, all the time.
Okay, to Jova's to Jova's credit.
This is Capcom Infinite.
No
Yeah.
barking.
To Jova's credit, he actually hasn't been mentioning it in quite a while by this point. He only mentioned it now because you guys brought it up. So,
I didn't say the word.
well,
But it
sure,
was pretty much implied.
whatever.
Come on,
The point.
That is literally entrapment there.
The point is, this.
You gave him plenty of bait, Joe.
You were
Go on,
saying,
Pedro.
Pedro?
Deep breaths, deep breaths.
The point is, let me put it in a way that you'll to catch up real quick, Deji. The original Gears trilogy was basically kind of a video game equivalent of an 80s action movie, in the sense that it was all about the one-liners and the fun, goofy characters that always spot out had some really great, funny interactions, and that was about it, really. It wasn't anything.
Until you got
It was
the game where the story got a lot more intricate. I
yeah,
would argue.
sure. It also had a sentimental side to it, but it was a simple trilogy that never at any point pretended to be anything more than it was. This, on the other
So
hand,
it was basically like Resident Evil.
Okay,
I guess
okay,
in a
okay.
way.
in a way, I guess you can
Hold
put
on.
it like that. In a
In
way,
its
yes.
own
Okay.
way, I guess.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. Think about it like this. Combine Resident Evil with the Expendables, essentially.
Sure.
And that's
This-
essentially what you've got.
Gears of War 4, on the other hand, is basically, as the fans themselves, because I'm actually in touch with a lot of Gears of War fans nowadays, this game, even Cliff Bleszinski, Deji, the creator of the series, has even called this the Star Wars Force Awakens of the Gears of War series. In the sense that it's trying
Oh,
to be,
no.
in the sense that it's trying to be a 20 years later thing with a new set of characters, and the other characters are old. The old characters are old now, and blah blah blah. And the Microsoft took out the dude bro aspect out of it, and completely took away a lot of aspects of that made it like, for example, the characters in this game are not cool or badass in any way. They're like we've talked about, and everybody here agrees they're lame. They're so freaking lame.
I have to agree.
So, I just wish we could come up with more words other than just.
Okay, first of all, this is nauseating to
okay,
look at.
Debs.
I'm
Wait,
sorry.
hold on.
I know that that's the intention, but Jesus Christ. Second, basically that's the character that you're seeing on screen, JD. They try to characterize him a bit in trying to be like Star-Lord for the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, but it's just so lame.
See, he's using it too. But anyway.
Is Microsoft the equivalent of... Wait, Microsoft is basically one of Ubisoft were making consoles instead, aren't they?
No, that's basically it. Microsoft is basically the EA of console manufacturers. They flood their games with microtransactions. They ever since Games Pass. Well, Sony and Nintendo don't, at least not so far. But anyway, God, what was it? Yeah, ever since Game Pass, they've made all their games as a live service. Blah blah blah. But anyway, okay, how about this, Dwebs then? By all means, bust out your British vocabulary and find what would be the British equivalent of the word lame, then.
Naff.
Naff, okay, so this game is naff. It's naff. There you go.
Dull, repetitive, melancholy. I can't pronounce it.
Melancholic.
Melancholy on itself isn't bad.
Yeah, I argue that. Also, one thing that I noticed, you hacks, you already used the Knock Knock title for a chapter in either Gears 2 or 3, one of the two previous two games.
Sorry.
You can't even actually come up anymore with new titles for your sub-chapters.
Maybe it's a little nod to the original trilogy?
I press X.
Well, to be honest, the line between homage and rip-off is so blurred.
That said, and it's not an excuse when something is just doing it to be lazy.
I can assure you, Teo, that the ending of this game will indeed be an attempt at capturing an old glory of the original trilogy. I'm not saying which, but you'll know it when you see it.
Okay, how do you perform that?
I can guess.
I guess in my private chat, just to make sure you don't spoil anybody.
No, hold on. So Pedro, how do you perform that maneuver that Kait did?
Which one? Sorry.
With the knife.
That. Okay. Basically, the idea is that if there's an enemy right behind your cover, you can jump over it and then use use your knife to basically kill him instantly. However, he has to be behind your cover. I don't find it to be very practical, personally. Because it depends on both you and the Locust being on very specific spots for it to be doable. So personally, I just stick around and just use my gun because it's just more convenient for me personally.
Complacement gaming syndrome, yeah.
Anyway, Debs, for a bit of context in this regard, the Locusts were pretty much the main big bads of the previous trilogy.
Sorry. Go ahead and finish, sorry.
By the third game, we got an offshoot of them known as the Lambent, which were essentially a mutated brand of locusts, which had explosive blood, essentially. It was later revealed that humans could also become Lambent. So, yeah, needed to get rid of them. So, basically, by the time of this game, the Lambent and locusts were pretty much all dealt with thanks to the sacrifice of Marcus's dad. That said, apparently the locusts are back, and get this,
with no explanation whatsoever, by the way.
Locusts.
Yeah,
well,
I played Gears 4 and Gears 5, and none of those games explain how the hell they were surviving locusts. Maybe the novel, maybe the graphic novels explain it, but I don't.
Okay. Oh my god, are you saying that they pulled a Halo 4?
No, Deji, that's the thing, Deji. That's the thing, Deji.
Has been doing that since I think the second
basically,
or the third
yeah, that's the thing, Deji. Ever since 343 took over Halo, yes, they started doing that. However, the Gears of War series actually have been doing that since the very beginning. Ever since the Gears of War started, there's always been tie-in comic books that explain backstory and lore that is not explained in the games. And sometimes there will be to give you an idea, Deji, there's going to be a plot point at the beginning of Gears 5 that is derivative of something that happened in a comic that takes place between 4 and 5. And, the game never really, mentions that. So if you're unaware of it, like, you'll be completely confused as to why the hell the characters are acting differently now.
Yeah, because with Halo 4, that like the complaint is they forgot to add in a villain, and one of the developers, I think it was the lead one, he said, "Oh yeah, he's in the novels. We just fought people."
Yeah, I heard about that too. Isn't that the villain that doesn't die in the game, only dies in a comic? If I remember correctly.
No, novels.
No, Pedro,
But whatever.
That's Assassin's Creed you're thinking of, with the villain who's established in the third game, but then dies in a comic.
Sure, but I do know, but I do know there's a Halo villain. I don't know if it's from. I know that there's a Halo villain. I don't remember if it's from 4 or 5 that doesn't actually die in 4. Or 5, if it is the one in 5.
I don't know that.
But he dies in a novel, so the villain of that game isn't even killed or / defeated in that game itself. You have to read a novel.
Pedro, he doesn't even show up in the game.
Well, I don't know.
So it's like a force that pilots the enemies when you
I'll
face
have
through the game.
Okay. Let me give you an equivalent. Imagine if Emperor Palpatine was never so much as mentioned in the original trilogy. It was, as far as we knew, just the Empire and Darth Vader. Then, all of a sudden, an exclusive novel comes out and says, oh, by the way, the Emperor was in charge of all this, but he died off-screen during, Episode 6, essentially.
Sure, I understand that.
That's pretty much the equivalent of what Halo 4 did.
Oh, so it's Halo 4 that does it, okay.
So, again, I will say this, though. I'm not sure if the villain is even killed off. For all I know, the villain may still be alive.
Well, that's because... The reason I know is because I saw a video on YouTube from a Halo fan called How Free for Free Industries Ruin Halo, and they even explain about that villain dying in a novel. And I think Actman also said something about that in one of his videos.
Basically, Gears of War and Halo kind of go hand in hand with their rises and their downfalls.
Basically, yeah.
So what you're saying is...
To answer Dweb's question... To answer this question, yes, Dwebs, you guessed it. Good job.
Anyway, I would say this. I would compare Microsoft more to Ubisoft than EA, since a lot of Microsoft's idiocies seem to come more from just straight-up incompetence or floundering about, rather than, absolute villainistic tactics like EA does, especially with their recent release of that god-awful Madden game.
Alright, so quick question. When do you guys think this is going to be uploaded?
Well, relatively soon, I guess, because we already have the first 3 in, so it shouldn't be that long.
Alright, so might as well say this. At least Microsoft didn't do something stupid as Ubisoft did yesterday, or a couple days ago.
God, what is
that mobile game?
The one with the
imagery.
Yes.
They made the villains a Black Lives Matter movement, and everyone was like, wait, what?
Even their own internal staff was shit-talking.
That reminds me, speaking of mobile games.
Hold on.
Speaking of actually, I think there's going to be a cutscene now, if I remember correctly, isn't there? Or is it going to be the fight against the Molter now that I think... Hold on, I think there's going to be... I know, Joe, I'm trying my best to remember a forgettable game, okay? Cut me some slack here.
Fair enough.
Okay, never mind. I think it's not this point. Okay. But speaking of mobile games, hey, Dweb, since you possess the means to record Android stuff, why don't you...
iOS, you mean?
Well, or iOS, whatever it is. It's on iOS as well. Why don't you record Gears Pop for us?
Gears what?
Gears Pop.
Gears, but with Funko Pops. The hip things with the teenage kids.
Will it cost me IRL money to do so?
I don't think so. I think it's a freemium game, if I remember correctly.
Okay,
because if it is, then I'm going to categorically refuse.
Okay, I'm gonna take a one guess and say that the weak point is in the chest that needs to be opened.
Very good, Teo. Do you play this game?
No, I know enemy design.
It's typical, I guess.
Yeah, it is very typical.
Okay, to be perfectly fair, remember that the Zelda franchise runs on the fact that you have to shoot eyes out of the enemies that are very exposed, so nothing new.
Yeah, same thing with...
Wait till it's open!
Yeah, basically.
Attack its weak point for
massive damage. Yes.
Hey, speaking of which, I have to say, I love Ghost of Tsushima and all, but
doesn't have a giant enemy crab. It's totally
I know,
accurate.
right? I mean, I was pretty sure history said that there were giant enemy crabs, according to Sony of E3 2006. Like, what gives Ghost of Tsushima? You are almost complete, but apparently you forgot the most vital
The crucial
ingredient.
details.
That's the thing, Jova. The guys who make Ghost of Tsushima actually went to Tsushima to do research, and they got actually cultural experts and historians to make sure. And they asked themselves, "So, Mr. Historian Consultant, were there giant enemy crabs in Japan in the 14th century?" No. Oh, okay then.
Well, good on them.
Okay.
Cutscene.
Cutscene time.
Yeah.
Raindrops keep
is
falling on my head.
Hope it has an elevator.
Thank you for that, Kait.
I mean, guess what? The punchline is that it doesn't have an elevator.
It actually does.
Dead.
Oh, okay.
Well, yet another cutscene that absolutely didn't advance the plot or develop any character.
Hold
Oh,
on.
never mind.
Is that girl his daughter?
That's Laura Bailey's character.
Actually, Dej, the blonde guy is Marcus's son.
The one we were controlling just now.
Yeah.
So, because the way that they keep pushing that female character in the next generation, it looked like that's why I thought she was.
Trust me, Dej, the plot treats her more like his daughter.
Brilliant. But yeah, like I was saying, yet another cutscene that didn't move the plot forward in any meaningful way, because that little story that Marcus was just telling has nothing to do with anything, and didn't develop the characters in any way. Good job, Tom. You're such a wonderful master at the art of lameness or naffness, for those who are Brits.
Okay, you're on the subject of Kait. I'm not one of those naff YouTubers that go on about how having female representation and stuff is damaging or is bloody.
Honestly,
the Gears 3 had it.
But so far, what I will say is that so far, from what I've seen of Kait, she's good at shooting things, but so is everyone else.
Don't worry, Dwebs. Gears 5 will make up for that by reinventing her, by Captain Marveling her. So,
make completely uninteresting and all-powerful and could just solve the plot in 1 minute.
So wait. You're saying her only personality is strong?
Not basically, yeah, basically.
Okay, like I said, usually going through the bullet point that I have.
I'm sorry, Captain Marvel was not a good movie.
It wasn't.
Okay, I was talking about Kait. Well, is she a character before being a female character? And the closest thing we've seen in this game is she does the metaphor thingy during the introduction, during the introduction cutscene of her, where she explains the metaphor with a butterfly. And if I had guessed correctly, this is not going to be a pretty thing later on anyway. So that's really the only thing she has been going for.
Oh, Tio, again, technically, that will tie into something involving your character.
But aside from that, she doesn't really have anything. But the problem is that it's a collective thing. These are not really characters. Like, there's an idea on paper on how these characters might be, and physical differentiation, but they actually do blend with each other. I have to admit that.
Let me put it like this. The characters are like the inverse problem with Gears of War Judgment's characters. Judgment's characters were ones with interesting backgrounds, but terrible interaction in the actual plot, which meant that we didn't actually actively get to see good development of those characters. In here, it's the inverse of that. The characters do have lots of interaction, but not really well-structured backgrounds, which means that, as far as we see, it's just a bunch of characters making lame jokes, and none of it is really productive to it. Well, okay, JD and his black friend have more development than Kait. I can't even...
His name is Del.
Jova, do what South Park does and call him Token.
There you go, Joe. Let's just call him Token.
So he wrote the Lord of the Rings?
I guess.
No, that's Tolkien. Tolkien. But anyway, no. Joe has a point though. Like, when is Dell actually going to contribute to anything in this game?
Like, seriously, okay.
Like, he did something at the beginning by being the tech-savvy guy who helped with the elevator, but that's kinda it.
Pretty much. Like, again, this plot is too short for its own good. The characters barely get to do anything, and when they do drag stuff out, it's for the wrong kind of plot segments here and
Again,
there.
like I said, and for the sake of Deji, since he hasn't heard the previous stuff, I'm still, because this game only had 2 years of development, which is not that much in terms of making a...
I mean, that's normal for a lot of games.
I know Deji, but this is supposed to be a AAA $60 game, and to have a game like that only... and this game is shorter than Gears of War 3 on the 360, which is kind of unacceptable, let's face it.
To his credit, a lot of franchises have been able to make game after game after game of, like, 2 or 3 year intervals, so
the developers are terrible, then.
Yeah, pretty
Either
much.
that or they lack coordination.
Well, actually, that's not surprising at all, Teo, because while I don't have hard, super duper undeniable evidence to back this up, everything we know and every sign we see, because I've been pointed to a lot of things with my new circle of friends that have told me all this. It's abundantly clear that the people at Microsoft right now, and by that I mean the executives, are all terrible. There's a lot of terrible management when it comes to Microsoft's first-party games. Like Rod Ferguson was terrible at managing this franchise. Bonnie Hunt, or is it Bonnie Ross? No, Bonnie Ross. That's it. Bonnie Ross, the head of 343. Well, I don't need to explain how she fucked up Halo because we already know about this. There's a big problem with management at Microsoft because they don't know how to get things done. Let it Crackdown free anyone.
Compare. That game is wait. Let me just put for context. Crackdown 3 was announced in like what 2014.
Yeah,
yes.
The initiative of the new titles for the Xbox One.
That's the big problem.
And then they announced that it's like, okay, it's gonna launch for the Xbox One X. But it got delayed in favor of Super Lucky's Tale.
It's
that game didn't come out, like what, last year?
Yeah.
And everyone forgot about it.
It's a genuine problem of bad management that permeates Microsoft in general. Compare this to something like Insomniac, who managed to give us a new Spider-Man game only 2 years after the first.
I can actually
well, to be fair, the Spider-Man game is...
Yeah, Miles Morales is going to be more on par with Lost Legacy in terms of skill, and Insomniac has said. But even then, that's still a better workflow than anything Microsoft has achieved.
Well, I can also connect it to actually this series because during the PS3 days, during the PS3 days, Insomniac did manage to consistently release both the new Ratchet and Clank titles and the Sony equivalent of this franchise, Resistance.
Yeah,
I still actually play it. I found a copy of at least the first game myself, but I know that it's very similar to this.
In that case, Teo, since I did the Xbox series for this kind of thing, you'll do the PlayStation 1. How about that?
I mean, sure, why not? Like I said, I already have at least a copy of the first Resistance, and finding the other two is not going to be that hard. And I actually did manage to find the Killzone trilogy basically for $10 total, so why not?
Sure.
Okay. Now, audience, let me just state for the record. I understand that there are a lot of cases where some games can take more than 2 years to complete here and there. Like, there are lots of big games or games trying incredibly new and innovative things that do require a lot more fine-tuning here and there. That said, the general idea is like, well, a new installment should be able to come out within 2 years if it's planned, which Gears of War 4 pretty much was planned. Like, regardless of whether or not, Epic Games were going to be involved or whatnot, it was pretty much on the planning block here and there. Now, normally the idea is often that a team will, say, split into teams here and there. It's sort of like how High Moon Studios, well, they were forced to split, mind you, but it's how High Moon Studios managed to make, 2 Transformers games within rather good proximity to each other. That being the Dark of the Moon tie-in game, and of course, Fall of Cybertron here. I don't know.
Although the counter argument to that is, unfortunately, games are getting harder and more expensive to make.
Yeah, that is actually a thing.
I blame that partially due to higher management, pretty much forcing some companies to go a bit above and beyond. Like, do not get me wrong, I get it. Use the advantages of the new technology, yes, but not every game needs to be like the next Red Dead Redemption 2 or whatnot.
However, if you have a household name like Gears of War or Halo for Microsoft, I understand the ideology of you want to show off how good.
That's the thing. That's the thing, Deji. Gears 5 bombed hard.
No, it did well because of Games Pass.
Actually,
being played on Games Pass doesn't count as a sale. That's the problem.
Not only that,
according to Microsoft, it does.
Well, that's the thing, Des. Microsoft recently revealed that Games Pass has actually not been doing them as good as they originally claimed.
Not just that, Deji. See, the main reason why they constantly bring up Game Pass is because it's the only thing they have to show to their shareholders that numbers that are not embarrassing. Because if they show that, that's why they stopped reporting console sales. That's why they stopped reporting game sales. They stopped reporting anything that makes them look bad, basically.
But isn't just the immediate halt in revealing those things a tell?
Well, yeah, it is. It is. Hey, Shiwei, try going on Twitter and explaining that to the Xbox Defense Squad. You'll have a joy of a time, I assure you.
I don't tend to go out of my way to interact with that.
Sure.
All she just does is talk about K-pop and Splatoon.
Anyway.
So I'm very on brand.
No, yeah. Well, it depends. Okay, it's one of those cases where each case is a case. Like with something like God of War 4, after God of War Ascension, the franchise was starting to lose relevance and got stale. Like even the plot of that game was mostly just completely irrelevant to the grand mythology at large. It felt so fillerish for what was supposed to be the new main game. It was abundantly clear that Santa Monica got to a point where they didn't know what else to do with the Olympus saga, so they had to do something drastic. Cory Barlog, fortunately, after a vacation and some travel to other places, came back to Santa Monica, and he was the one who had the idea of taking God of War into the Norse lands. Because let's just say God of War needed a drastic change if it was going to continue, otherwise it would lose relevance. And that's why that game took 5 years to make, because it required a complete reinvention of the God of War formula, basically.
Also, Santa Monica had gotten a beating thanks to the Order 1886 cutscenes, and Sony probably was pressing on them because of that.
God,
Also, Cory Barlog said this will win Game of the Year. No, he really did say that when he pitched the game.
Boy, hindsight. But yeah, it's a thing you mentioned today. Order 1886, aka quite possibly a textbook definition of kind of everything wrong with Sony's mindset when it comes to movie-like games. Like, that one was just taking things way too far, and it is a clear example of what happens when you go to...
in general, like that, Jova, you wanted to talk about Last of Us Part 2 before. Well, this is another example. Yeah. Most Sony games these days live and die by the narrative. If you remove that, sure, you will have the gameplay to go along, but only for a relatively minor part of a fan base that wants to play that.
I don't know, too. I think God of War and Ghost of Tsushima do a great job in not necessarily being entirely dependent on their narrative to be good games, but
You're just a Sony fanboy, Hero. That's basically it. You just want Microsoft to fail.
I'm not disagreeing with what the Order 1886 argument. I'm just saying that it's not exactly like Theo is putting it.
Well,
because God of War and Ghost of Tsushima don't have those issues. Hell, for as bad as it is, the NAC games don't have those issues.
Actually, the NAC games do have those issues. I went into great length into why the narratives completely really do screw with the story and gameplay here and there. But okay, Theo does raise a good point.
When you think of when you think of like wasn't the argument about something like Order 1886, which is being like 80% cutscenes and 20% game? Wasn't that the argument?
That too. But what they said was the fact that if the narrative is not as strong, the game has to stand on the leg of the gameplay, of course. So if that is done in a way that it's just serviceable, doesn't have anything particularly unique, or in the case of NAC is outright bad, that's the other leg falling off for the game.
Well, okay. I thought you were making one of those arguments about the 70% movie, 30% game thing.
I mean, that might also be potentially a thing for a lot of titles, compared to other companies. But no, what I meant is the fact that the two things serves to, have this game standing up. So, of course, if one of these two pillars is not as strong enough, the other will suffer as a result.
I just think people take a handful of titles and immediately stigmatize all of Sony's catalog with that label, even though I can point to various examples where that doesn't apply. So
I will pretty much just state it like this. Sony definitely are not 100% like that. But they didn't really do themselves favors with the 7th gen and, yes, even the 8th gen of games, considering as how they were pretty infamous for that. Thankfully, yes, there were a lot of games that did not fall into that, but Sony are definitely the company who, the company of the big three who do that the most, and it didn't help that for a time they were kind of falling into this mentality of, hey, games as they are way too outdated or childish, so let's make them more cinematic, more mature and whatnot. Like, I can only just hope that, okay, that mentality is only okay to a fraction of a certain bout of execution there, and that's best for maybe, like, say, visual novels, point-and-clicks, adventure games and whatnot. But that should not be the ruling mentality here.
That's the thing. I don't really see that being a ruling mentality, to be honest. But anyway,
it kind of was with Sony, but thankfully, what salvages it is like, well, a lot of their games still did turn out to be good. Thankfully, the problem is like, well, when it didn't work, it really didn't work.
Well, that goes for every game if you go with that route. But anyway, tune in next time for, I guess,
we find what's on the top of the dam, like we said.
Yes.
See ya.
See ya.
Yep, see ya.